Today's topic is Back to the Basics, the piping series. The truth of the matter is we try really hard to create a template that works directly out of the box, but almost 100% of the time the out-of-the-box setup will need some tweaking to work with your company standards. Every company does things differently, and there's just no way we can please everyone and get it correct. You know, everybody has different shop standards. Everyone has different drawing and CAD standards, and those two things put together means that you're going to have to customize the software in some shape or form. There's just no way around it. And by software customization, I don't mean programming or anything like that. I just mean setting up your templates, you know, maybe possibly rearranging your colors for your layers, renaming of layers, that sort of thing. That being said, you know, if there's any template or setup recommendations that you would really like to see in the out-of-the-box product, you know, feel free to email them to me or email them to support at EastCoast CAD/CAM, and we'll make every effort to try to implement those in a way that benefits everybody. What I'm going to try to accomplish with this series is give you the ability to work with the software, not against it. If you're currently struggling with the software, routing pipe, that sort of thing, you shouldn't be. Usually 90% of the time there's some setup tweaks that could be done that will allow you to route your pipe and your equipment a lot easier than what you are currently doing. And so what we want to accomplish is to give you a complete and accurate setup with your SQL Server database that's going to allow you to model quicker and easier, as I said. We're going to work on some how to set up your template the right way, or at least what I think is the right way. Maybe someone else thinks it's you should do it a different way. And by the time we're all done, hopefully we'll get you to fabricate your piping parts right the first time and at least get a good set of documented drawings out the door. What this series will not cover is how to install the software. We have a software installation team that will do that for you. A lot of our customers have been with us for many years, and they've gotten to where they can upgrade themselves quite easily. In addition to that, I'm not going to be going over a generic AutoCAD template setup. Things such as, you know, setting your dimension styles, setting your text styles, simple things like that, that if you've been using any AutoCAD-based product for any length of time, you should pretty much know how to do that sort of thing. If you don't and you need some help, well, then you can contact support at eastcadcam.com or call our 1-800 number, and they would be more than happy to assist you in anything that you might need done. Even though we weren't going to talk about how to install AutoCAD MEP and EastCoast CAD, I do want to go over what should have been installed, at least in the CAD portion of the software. First, of course, you need our main product, which is Fabrication for AutoCAD MEP, and you can tell if that's been added if on the Home tab of the ribbon you have what is showing here, this first little top picture where you have the load catalog screen on the Home tab of the ribbon. If you don't have the load catalog screen, then the software is more than likely not loaded, and you can easily test that by just typing the ECDIAG command at the command line, ECDIAG, which is short for East Coast Dialog, and it'll just tell you the current version of the East Coast software that is running. The second thing that should have been installed, and all of these are different setup programs, so it's not one setup program that will install everything. These are 4 different setup programs, and sometimes the IT department at your company might forget to install a couple of these, so just you might want to remind them if you don't have them that there are some additional programs that need to be installed. The second of which is the Parametric Part Wizard templates. In order to double check and see if that has been installed, on the Home tab of the ribbon on the far left there is a drop down which you can choose the Parametric Part Wizard. If you choose that and drop down and look at some of the VAV boxes, you'll see the EastCoast in the name. VAV boxes, coils, air handling units, that sort of thing. If you scroll through the list, there'll be a selection of parts there with the EastCoast name in them. If you do not have any parts with the EastCoast name in them, then the Parametric Part Wizard needs to be installed. The third thing is our manufacturer-specific catalogs. You can access these by just typing MVPART at the command line, and it'll bring up the add equipment dialog. And you should see, if you look at the picture here, the third picture down, you should see a catalog that says EastCoast MVPARTS 2014. That'll be the first catalog that you'll see. If you happen to have created a parametric part from EastCoast using the Parametric Part Wizard, then you'll also see an EastCoast Custom MVPARTS catalog. That catalog will not show up until you have created a parametric part for the first time. And finally, the fourth item that you should see, it's on the Support tab of the ribbon, and the setup program is called the User Interface Elements. And that's just a ribbon tab that gives you access to a lot of EastCoast CAD resources, some buttons that will quickly start a join GoToMeeting if you happen to be on the line with an EastCoast technician. There's a shortcut to the YouTube channel, our user guides, the current release notes, classroom guides, and the last one there, the Parametric Part Wizard, will bring up PDFs of all of our items in the Parametric Part dialog that will show you what each of the dimensions should be, which parameters match up to each dimension. One thing I would add is that all the PDFs for the user guides, the release notes, and the classroom guides, those all link to a live version on our website. And in order to access them, you will need to have a login to our forums and our online site. It's a free login. You just have to be a registered customer. And again, if you don't currently have a login, you can just contact support at ecadcam.com, and they would be more than happy to set you up as soon as possible. So getting started with modeling an MEP system, I like to think of it as a three-step process. There are a lot of many micro steps inside of these three steps, but if you break it down into its basic parts and pieces, the three steps that I see are adding your equipment. Once your equipment is added, you then create all of your connecting elements. This would be your pipe fittings, your accessories, anything that would actually show up in the 3D model. When that is complete, you would then start to annotate the model. And by annotating, I mean your tags, your labels, your text, your creation of all your views, your elevation views, and your printout for your sheets. Breaking it down, 3 easy steps. The bulk of our webinars in this series is going to be on the second step, creating our connecting elements, our pipes, fittings, and accessories. That's where you'll be spending a lot of your time in modeling. The equipment can get added pretty quick. Because of that, that's what we're going to speak about today, is adding equipment. So what is the equipment in AutoCAD MEP? Well, AutoCAD MEP actually calls your equipment a multi-view part. And the reason why it's called a multi-view part is all in the name. Basically, it can be displayed differently depending on your point of view. So that means you can have a 2D or 3D representation of the part basically in one object. So you can have it display one way in 2D and another way in 3D. So for parametric parts, that are parts that can stretch and grow parametrically, there's the 2D version and the 3D version. For block-based parts, there are a different version for every different type of view, your left, your right, top, bottom, front, back. And then you can break those views up even more depending on the type of display configuration you're in. Now, if you don't understand what the display configuration is, we've spoken about it in the past in its own individual webinars, and we'll lightly touch on it today or in the coming weeks. And when that happens, I'll try to reference back some of the other webinars that we've done in the past that touch on it more in depth. Now, what makes the 3D equipment / multi-view part different than just a plain block in AutoCAD MEP is the fact that it has intelligent grips on it, which allows you to move your equipment around. It also has intelligent connectors, so the connector has the ability to know what type of system it is or what type of connection it is. Is it a butt weld connection? Is it a welded pipe? Is it a flange connection? Is it a groove connection? That sort of thing. And one other thing that's not actually listed on there is that you can add, similar to how you would add an attribute to a block, you can add any number of parameters to a multi-view part that describe that piece of equipment. An example would be the manufacturer name, maybe the part number, maybe the URL from where you can download the submittal. All of those things come together to create a multi-view part. There's several different ways to get a multi-view part into your drawing. The first of which is typing the MVPART add command at the command line, and it will bring up the add multi-view parts dialog, similar to what you see in the picture on the right in your screen. From there, depending on the part that you choose, you'll see a large list or a very small list of different types of parts. Looking at the picture we have now, there is only one part available. I would like to call attention to halfway in the picture here. There is a text box that says limit our search to, and you can input a number there, and here I've actually inputted 160. And then there is a second number that says one found. So limit search to 160, and there's one found. Now, if this was a part with a lot of different sizes and that number was not 160, maybe it was set to 10, and your part had, 100 and some different sizes. An example might be a VAV box with a left and right hand control box and a left and right hand coil attached to it. With the different sizes, the amount of different combinations could number close to 200. Depending on the VAV box brand and manufacturer. And if you don't have this number here to be at least as large as the second number that is shown, then you're going to miss out on seeing those parts down here, and you might assume that you don't have that part in your library when actually you do. It's just not being shown. Also, on the top here, there is a second tab called the part filter that allows you to filter your parts. So maybe you know that you need a 8-inch VAV box, with a 3/4 inch coil connection. So you can go to that filter and choose the connection that you want and choose the size, and it will filter down your parts to include only those connection sizes. Maybe you only need a certain manufacturer. If you have all of your VAV parts loaded up into one template, then it's possible you could have thousands. So you could limit it to a single manufacturer, a single size, and drastically reduce the amount of parts that you see. Finally, for the MVPART add command, down at the bottom, there is another checkbox that says display or hide additional part parameters. Most of the time I like to keep that unchecked because it will limit the amount of parameters that you see in your list. So if you look across the top here, you'll see part size name, connection 1 name, connection domain, and so on and so forth. And there's a scroll bar at the bottom that allows you to scroll all the way across. Now in the picture, I have that checked. That means that every single parameter on that part is going to be visible. If you uncheck it, then only the parameters that have been marked as being visible will be shown. So depending on who the author of the part was, they might have checked every single parameter to have it shown. They might have unchecked every parameter. It just depends. But I always like to start with that checkbox unchecked, because usually when someone creates a part, they'll put the most important parameters first, the ones that you need to see right away. If that's not the case, you can always grip the outside edge of the box and stretch it to see as many items as you need at once. And finally, with the MVPART add command, I generally like to type the MVPART add command at the command line. There are other ways to get to it. If you're using the tool palette, the out-of-the-box tool palette, if you happen to be in the HVAC workspace and you select the equipment command from the tool palette, be aware that it will only filter and show you mechanical parts. If you're in the electrical workspace, which probably if you're on this webinar you won't be, but if you are, then it will only show you parts that are in the electrical folder. And that, in our case, it would then filter out all of the EastCoast parts, most of the mechanical multi-view parts. So you just have to be aware of where you start the MVPART add command. If you start it from the ribbon, I believe it almost always starts up with no filters being added, but if you can't find a part for whatever reason, try typing the command at the command line instead of invoking it from the ribbon or from the tool palette. Another way to get your part into a drawing is to create a new one from an existing template using the parametric part wizard, as seen in the picture on the right. We have created several different templates for your use there. This is a template of a coil that allows you to move the connections around, change the height, width, and depth of the coil box, that sort of thing. So there's several different types of piping templates in there. Look at them, mess around with them. You know, if you can think of anything else you would like in there or some improvements to the existing templates, let us know and we'll try to get that done. There are some alternative choices for equipment, and that is using the content builder, where you can create your own block-based multi-view part, your own parametric part, and the third choice for making equipment is to make a single instance of a part using the part converter. These are all topics that we have touched on in the past. I haven't gone extremely in-depth on creating them. I would consider this an advanced topic, and since this is a basic series, we won't be covering it. But if it's something that a lot of people, enough people out there would like to see, it's certainly a topic that we can cover in the future. But it is quite advanced and it is quite lengthy. But the payoff, in my eyes, is incredibly huge, because you get a part that you've created yourself that works for everything that you need it to work for, and it's something that you can keep in your catalog and have going forward for every single version of AutoCAD MEP and EastCoast that comes out. And there is a lot of information in the help file if you choose to go that route. Equipment, multi-view parts contain piping accessories, but in the aspect that I'm speaking of, where we place our equipment first and then run all of our piping, I'm not really thinking or speaking about piping accessories. Those are our valves, our gauges, our metering devices. You know, these are still typically multi-view parts, but I don't consider them termination points for equipment such as what a chiller or a pump or a cooling tower would be. So these are modeled in line when you're modeling your pipe. So we will start to speak about those when we get into routing of pipe and pipe fittings. And I just wanted to touch on them just a little bit and say, you know, yes, they are multi-view parts, they are equipment, but I wouldn't consider those to be pieces that you would place first in your drawing. I'm talking about your large pieces of equipment. So I just thought I would go over our equipment really quick in AutoCAD, and since this is the piping webinar, I am going to go ahead and just place a basic pump. Before I do, you can see that as I spoke of just a few moments ago, when I click in, I had typed the MVPART add command, and I'm expanding the all installed MVPARTS catalog. You can see I have some different folders here and showing all of them. I cancel out of this command and go to my tool palette, and somewhere over here on the equipment tab I have a mechanical equipment. If I select that and then expand the all installed MV parts, you can see that it's only showing me the mechanical folder. And under EastCoast parts, it's only showing the mechanical folder. So like I said, that command filters all of the parts that you have loaded, doesn't matter what catalog it came from, or if it came from the EastCoast SQL database. It's only looking for parts that are in a mechanical folder. And you can actually see that and actually create your own commands. If I start that command again and then go down and look at the command line, we can see, we cancel out of it, and let me bring up the dialog here. Right here it is. I'm going to highlight it. You can see that's what it's actually doing is it's starting the MVPart add command, and then it's using the command line to choose a specific chapter, in this case mechanical. So that's all that tool palette is really doing. It's starting the command line version of MVPart add, but then it's saying I want to filter all of my parts that belong in the mechanical folder or chapter. And you can actually do a lot more filtering than just that. You can delve down into some different folders, but that's what that's doing right there. So let's actually add a part and look at some of the intelligent connectors and grips on it. So again, let's go ahead and add one of the out-of-the-box pumps. And let's see, I accidentally went into the plumbing directory. Let's get into the mechanical directory, pumps, and let's add a nice big base bottom pump. And looks like my UCS is messed up. That's all right. We'll go ahead and just rotate that pump around. So if I change my UCS to the left, I can then take that pump and rotate it 90 degrees, and everything should be good. There. And let's go ahead and change our UCS back to our top. So if I look at this pump, when I added it through the command line through MVPart add, and I'll go back there real quick, you can see all of these different parameters on it. That's what I meant by having some intelligence to the part. It has a part name. It has a part description. If you're using IFC in any way, this has a IFC classification to it. All of this stuff is available using property sets if you need to schedule that sort of information. Some of the EastCoast parts, if I go and look in an EastCoast part real quick, and look in our EastCoast manufacturers catalog and look at a valve. Let's look at a NIPCO PVC valve. If I scroll over, you'll see that we've added some extra information. Name per manufacturer, part article figure, you know, what schedule is it, the vendor code. All of this stuff has been added by EastCoast, and depending on the visibility, you'll see a lot of things start to disappear and not be seen. In this case, a lot of the parts parameters are set to be displayed. Some of them are not. You can see I have a lot of these three items here drop off when I check and uncheck this. Here you can see that there are 9 items found. I'm looking for 160, but if I had that set to 5, you'd see now that only 5 items show up, even though there's actually 9. So you might think that that part is not in your catalog. So pay attention to that. That's kind of a big deal. And of course, you can uncheck the Details tab if you don't want to see things down there, and choose your part from the drop down here. So we've got a pump in our drawing. So what's the big deal about these intelligent grips and intelligent connectors? Well, you can see that this has 3 different types of grips on it. There is a plus grip, a triangular grip, and then a 5-sided grip here that allows you to do different things. So there's one of each of those on the connectors, and then on the insertion point of your equipment you have 2 different types of connectors. Again, you have a triangular connector and you have a rectangular connector. The rectangular connector is the location connector, when you select it, it'll allow you to move your part wherever you want. If you have your dynamic input turned on, and you might have your, in my case I tend to use polar tracking, I can move it directly over, directly up, or even in an angle if I have my angle set up. So that allows you to move your pump in any direction that you want. That triangular grip is our elevation grip. It allows you to move your pump only up and down. You notice I'm trying, but I cannot move it in any other direction. And if you have, again, if you have your dynamic display turned on, dynamic input, as I move that, you're going to see a couple different tabs, or excuse me, a couple different numbers highlight. The first one is what I believe is a absolute elevation. So right now it's highlighted. If I put in 13 feet and hit enter, and come over and look at my properties tab, you can see that that pump is actually sitting at 13 feet. So that is a absolute entry. If I tab once and go to the next box, that is a relative entry. I can move that pump down exactly 3 feet. You look over at the property palette, you can see that yes, it has moved to exactly 3 feet down to 10 feet. So that's what is meant by intelligence on those grips. The other grips, the plus grip, allows me to pull pipe out of that part. And depending on how that connector is set up, it'll put different types of connectors on there. This connector on this part is set up for a flange connection, so it's going to ask me what type of flange would I like to put on there. And I'm going to just choose a weld bend flange and attach it. When I do that, it goes ahead and attaches the flange and attaches the pipe. If I delete those and get back to just the regular grip and go down to, again, the elevation grip of the connector, you'll see that this time there are, and it's hard to see, but you'll see the 3 lines going down the length down to 0, 0, 0. And actually, if I move this pump down to, say, an absolute elevation of 1 foot, and now I hit this, it's a little easier to see those three lines. And what those 3 lines correlate to is the bottom of pipe, center of pipe, and top of pipe. So if I actually selected that grip, right now I'm working off the center of pipe, I can put that pump where I get a center of pipe elevation. If I tab over once, I can put that pipe with a top of pipe elevation. I tab one more, this would be a relative move. How far do I want to move it from its current location, which is exactly the same as the relative move from the base point of the equipment. And finally I hit tab once more, and whatever elevation I put in there will become my bottom of pipe elevation for that connector. And then again, you have another move point that you can choose to move from that connector, and you can move anywhere you want. And the same is for each connection that is on that multi-view part. So we have a second connection up here that has the exact same functionality. You need to be careful though with the elevation grips. You can see that it knows that this pump or this connection is vertical and not horizontal, so it's only going to give you the relative move versus the other, the horizontal connector had 4 different types of moves: the relative, top of pipe, bottom of pipe, center of pipe. So equipment, other than placing it where you need it to be, that's pretty much what I wanted to speak about as far as equipment today. Next time we are going to meet is Tuesday, June 23rd, and we will talk about, starting to talk about routing pipe and pipe fittings. There's a lot to go over in that topic. We will first start with just choosing the out-of-box settings, and then probably in a different webinar we will talk about setting up all your different styles, your routing preferences, and your system definitions. So I thank everyone for coming. We'll see you next time, and thanks for coming.